Hey guys, welcome back to Faith and Fire, God and Country. I am Brandon Lynette. If you are new here, I'm not really going to give you too much of a warning other than buckle up because I don't do comfort in this show. I do true. And sometimes true is super uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that. By the time this episode is over, I feel like you will be okay with that as well. If you are one of my regulars sticking through with me, I appreciate you so much. Thank you genuinely. You keep showing up and so do I, and that matters to me more than you know. If you're new here, welcome to the show that will absolutely ruin cable news for you and probably social media for you forever. You're welcome. And also, I'm not sorry. Um, so listen to me. You guys are, this is the thing about podcasting for me, that it's always been kind of a therapy, I guess. I take you guys through that real life. I just take you guys through it. I've done it with my flagship show with Listen Bitch. A lot of you have come over here from that show, and I love you for that. If you don't know about Listen Bitch, we're in the rebellion season where we actually, all this shit I talk about, I teach you how to unplug in real life, how to, get your house in order, get yourself in order, stop playing the useful idiot and really just get unplugged from all of the systems because that makes us very dangerous. And I'm on ball with that. Like that's where I want to be. And so this show now, the season I'm in, you guys are going to come with me through the season. I told you this week about how we went through this stuff with my son and the Marines, and everything has moved really fast. Like he is out of town right now with his first steps, I guess, the necessary trip right now for him to go ahead and leave for boot camp in about two to 3 weeks. And I guess I pulled up at home today, ran some errands. I've been really good this week. Like as good as in like I haven't lost my shit. Like he has not seen me break down. I haven't broken down really. Just a couple tears in my eyes, going going through it. It was a little bit of a stressful week and super proud of that. For some reason I pulled in the driveway today and I lost it. I lost it. It just kind of hit me that this is real and this is fast, and you know the grieving period is going to start for me really soon. And by grieving, I know, of course he's not dead, you guys, but it's in the same way that I guess I grieved my older girls. Our relationship looks different. I have to become different. I'm not the mom of a little boy anymore. He is going to be a whole ass man when he comes through this. So I'm in my feelings. I come in my office. I had a big plans today, right? I tell my husband everything I'm going to do because I don't have softball tonight. First plan was obviously to get this show up before it got dark today, and that didn't happen because I went on a little side quest. I pulled up my little mom packet that the recruiter gave me and I started reading it, and I found this book. So I went ahead and did a little deep dive on this book, and it's really great. It's called Making the Core by Thomas Ricks. And it just reminded me, my son's name is Malachi. I prayed for him. I prayed for everything about him before I even held him in my arms. He has always just been an incredibly special kid. And what came full circle for me today, I wrote my first letter to him. I know he's not even gone yet, but I want to make sure he gets one from me every single day. And I thought this first one would be therapeutic for us. So I went ahead and I wrote this just beautiful letter. His name, is messenger from God. That's what Malachi means. And I just have always known that he had a mission. I mean, we had a conversation about his name and what it meant when he was a little guy, you know, and just seeing this dream come into fruition and reading this book and realizing like my son is never meant to be of this world. So everything I talk about in this podcast, especially with the Listen Bitch podcast about the rebellion, he's doing everything I passionately wake up and try to get the world to do, which is unplug from this world, get focused in on you, get disciplined, just getting that strength and that resilience and building all these things. So I wasn't crying because I was sad when I'm writing this letter. It was just so much pride. It I it's going to be a lot. And my husband and I'm telling him about it while he's busy at work. He's having to tolerate with mommy's emotions, and he's so good at that. And he was just like, it's genuinely, I mean, it's probably going to get worse. And I agree it is. I have to become someone new. I'm down to 3 birdies in the nest. Okay. 6 from 3. And it's only been a year since the first 2 flew the coop. So it is a big adjustment. And I guess, I didn't see it coming. I mean, I saw it coming, right? But like there was no warning. No one says when you have a baby, like how crazy the journey is going to be. There's no step-by-step process, but I'm blessed beyond measure that he is stepping into his God-given potential, and the fact that he knows God has him on this mission is just the greatest gift I can ever have, next to the gift that God gave me of getting to be his mom. So much pride, you guys. We're going to go through the journey. I'm going to need y'all to help me through this. Especially, I love that a lot of you moms have reached out to me. I do have a lot of military moms on my page, especially Marine moms. And I do think there's a difference. I think there's a difference because I compared boot camps, and Marines are brutal. They are brutal. It is a whole different arena, I think. Um, I think they're all tough, but this is just the crucible too. Is just I read a little bit about that today, and oh, it's going to be a hell of a journey, you guys. Let's get into it today. You guys know, if you are dealing with pain or inflammation or lower energy, or you just feel like your body is fighting against you, I want you to check out my link for the patch. Okay. Liberty and freedom are the God sent for my husband. These are frequency based wellness patches, no drugs, no needles, anti pharma here, no ingredients at all. Okay. So it doesn't have any of that weird shit you can't even pronounce anyway. They actually just work with your body's nervous system. And the science behind it is absolutely real. So go to brandonlynette.com, or no, brandonlynette.superpatch.com, and just try them. We've actually got a Mother's Day special right now. It's buy 2 get 1 free. The first time you use my link, there is an automatic programmed savings code in there. So make sure you go through brandonlynette.superpatch.com. Okay. And I mean, seriously, if you guys are not already listening to the Listen Bitch podcast, I don't know what to tell you. That's the OG, right? We're creeping up to 600 episodes, but this show is definitely kind of the support for Faith and Fire, God and Country. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you're going to be able to find it. Okay, Listen Bitch. And I guess my final thing, okay? Like if you need content warnings, I talk about brutal stuff. If you need a safe space, or if you need someone to validate your decision to stay comfortable and uninformed, this will be the wrong show for you. Back out now. I would be the wrong host for you. In fact, probably you're on the wrong planet, but we don't have to go that far. I love you, but this is not that shit. Okay, so here we go. Not in a not in a boring way. We're going to talk about oil. Who in the actual hell is running this thing, and why does it cost $47 to fill up a little car kind of way? That's what we're going to talk about, because here's what happened this week. And I just want to inform you guys. The Department of Justice just opened an investigation alongside the Commodity Futures Trading Commission into over 2.6 billion with a B is in boy, $1 billion in suspicious oil trades. 2.6 billion. Again, I'm going to say it with a B. And not just suspicious in a, that's interesting. Okay. Suspicious in a, they placed these bets minutes before Trump made major announcements about Iran, that kind of way. So I'll walk you through this because I do think that the facts and the details really do matter in this space. March 23rd, 15 minutes before President Trump announced he was delaying threatening strikes on Iran's power grid, traders placed over $500 million in short bets that oil prices would fall. 15 minutes before a public announcement, $500 million. April 7th, hours before Trump announced a temporary ceasefire, Traders bet $960 million that oil prices were about to drop. 960 million hours before. Come to April 17th, 20 minutes before Iran's foreign minister announced the Strait of Hormuz was reopening to commercial traffic, 760 million in shorts. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. April 21st, 15 minutes before Trump expanded that ceasefire. Another $430 million. Four separate trades. Over $2.6 billion total. Every single time placed before the public knew anything. Every single time. Check, check, check. You tell me. You tell me what that is. Because in the real world, world that the rest of us live in here, where we're slumming it, where we don't have access to classified diplomatic cables in real-time war room conversations, you don't get that trade right 4 times in a row. You don't get $1 billion in a ceasefire that hasn't been announced yet and win unless you knew, unless someone told you, unless the information that is supposedly sacred, classified and protected was being handed to someone who used it to get rich while you pay $6 for a gallon of gas. This is not a conspiracy theory. Okay, tinfoil hat is not on. The DOJ is already in on it. The CFTC is investigating it. Our smarty arties, Elizabeth Warren, Sheldon Whitehouse, they even chimed in to request investigations. That's what's really happening. And this is where I want to just kind of zoom out, because the trades are the symptom, right? They're not really the disease. The disease is this: you never have been in control of the price of gas. Not once, not ever. You think oil prices are set by supply and demand. And in a perfect world, sure, that would be the textbook answer. That's what y'all think. But we don't live in a textbook. We live in a world where the Strait of Hormuz carries 20% of the world's oil, and certain people, very powerful, very rich, very connected people, can create a feeling of crisis around that strait. And that's where we watch the prices spike. These people position themselves correctly in the futures market before the announcement that calms everything back down, and then they walk away with billions. We're being played yet again. Fear is the product, and you are the consumer. Fear is the product, you're the consumer. When you see a headline that says the Strait of Hormuz partially blocked, oil supply at risk, that headline is not just informing you, it is moving a market, and people know that it's coming. Someone's already positioned for that. California just received what's being described as potentially the last Middle East oil tanker before supply uncertainty gets worse. Gas is above $6 a gallon in parts of the state right now. $6. I believe we're in Michigan. What are we, like 4 or 5? I'm just desensitized because I was putting a lot of money in my car when a couple years ago. So I just feel like that's probably where we are. The first thing the average person does when they see that number at the pump is panic. They fill up extra. They change their driving habits. They feel the squeeze, which is exactly the desired outcome. Proverbs 11, verse 1. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. God cares about honest scales. He cared about it when merchants in the ancient world would tip the weights to cheat the farmers. He cares about it right now when someone with access to information you don't have is tipping the scales in all market to the tune of, in the oil market, to the tune of $2.5 billion. A false balance is an abomination. So write that down. Matthew 6:24, you cannot serve both God and money. You can't do it because whoever is running this can't be serving God. What they're serving is the machine. And the machine that needs your fear, your compliance, your anger, your willingness to believe that you are powerless against rising prices, shrinking paychecks, and a world that seems to be spinning out of control. It is not spinning out of control. It's being spun on purpose by people who know exactly which direction they're spinning it. Follow the money. Always follow the money. Okay? And let me tell you about something else that's been on my mind because I had two separate conversations this week, two completely unrelated people, and they both said the same thing to me. I do this incredible interview show. I get to meet amazing people. Um, Retired FBI and I am blanking at what my other interviewee what he is, but he is wise about things I'm not. Uh, but specifics, okay, I want you to hear this. Both of these conversations, separate days, separate people, both of them said, no matter what you see happening publicly, no matter what's in the news about Iran, about Russia, about whoever, our biggest threat is still China. Military. Okay. This my other is military. I just don't remember which branch. Our biggest threat is still China by a lot. And most of what you're watching in the news is really just a simple misdirection. So, two people, same message independently. And then what happens this week, right? I don't know this until today, and I've had these conversations in the past few days. Trump announces he's flying to Beijing on May 14th and 15th to meet with Xi Jinping. First presidential trip to China in 8 years. Now, the media, I feel like they're going to frame this one of two ways. Either it is the triumphant deal maker going to close the biggest deal of the century, or it's weakness, you know, uh, Trump bowing to China, depending on which outlet you watch, probably. You'll get one of those two stories. And both of them are going to be missing the whole point. And here's what I see when I look at this trip, right? This is just what I see. Jinping has been very quiet while the United States has been very loud about Iran. He's been watching us burn energy, burn resources, burn political capital in a war in the Middle East while China has been positioning quietly the way they always do. And China just issued something called Announcement 21 through their Ministry of Commerce. And the language in it is, I would say, breathtaking. Three specific prohibitions. Chinese citizens, companies, and organizations are directed to not recognize, not enforce, and not comply with U.S. sanctions related to Iran. China told its people to ignore American sanctions. He said it out in the open and he made it official. They are buying Iranian oil in defiance of our sanctions. They are locking up rare earth minerals, the stuff we need for our good old AI chips, okay? We need it for military technology, for everything that runs the next 50 years of the country. They're moving slowly and they're moving strategically and they're doing it while we're distracted. And Trump is flying into Beijing. The question that I'm asking, and maybe I want you to just kind of sit with, is this: who has more leverage in that room? Trump walks in while approval ratings are down because gas prices are up. The Z guy walks in holding the keys to rare earth processing, holding relationships with Iran, holding a quiet trade war truce that he can blow up at any moment. He's kind of holding all the cards, and I think he knows it at this point. And the two people I talked with are not wrong. I don't see that. Whatever you see on the surface, China is the long game. China is the chess player, and we need to be paying attention with both eyes, not one eye on Iran and one eye on the latest Netflix drama, or what's that ridiculous devil flaunting show that just came on where they're masquerading the outfits. I'm really sad seeing a lot of people do the AI thing with their was it like the Golden Globes or something? I don't know. Whatever it was that happened where they're just worshiping the devil. That's where everyone's looking right now. A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. That's in Proverbs. We are not called to be simple. We are called to be the prudent. We are called to see this stuff. We are called to name it. We are called to pray over it. And don't let anyone tell you the headline is the whole story. And I want to talk about AI. Um, and we are going to talk about it, but I'm going to say something about Trump and why, even when I disagree with certain things, I still see the picture of what he is as that disruptor. He is chaos in a suit. He walked into the most controlled, most scripted, most carefully managed political machine owned by these elites in history, and he's been breaking things. He's breaking things since day one, and some of those things needed to be broken. Isaiah 45 talks about Cyrus. Okay, Cyrus, you guys, he was a Persian king, not a Jewish man, not a man of faith, as far as we know, history for what I've read. And God called him by name before he was born and used him to free his people from Babylon. God called Cyrus my anointed in a passage that would have made every religious person of that era spit out their drink, because Cyrus wasn't supposed to be the hero. Cyrus wasn't the clean candidate. Cyrus was the wrecking ball God sent to knock down the walls. And that's the framework. Not that Trump is some Jesus. He is not some saint savior. And it's not that he's perfect. Not that every decision he makes is divinity inspired. Absolutely not. He is not your Messiah. He is not mine. Christ is king, not Trump. But I do believe that God can use disruptors. And I believe God uses the imperfect, the rough, sometimes profane people. Hello, have you guys seen me? Have you met me? Have you had a conversation with me? You can't tell me that God's not going to use people exactly where they are to accomplish things that some polished, comfortable, carefully managed person could never do. No one could be who I am and represent this show and still speak to you on the level that you needed it today. Polished people are too invested in the system to burn it down. That's just how it goes. Beijing, that's disruption. Open negotiations with Iran rather than just blowing him off the face of the earth like he said. He hasn't done that and he hasn't walked away. That's disruption. Exposing the oil trade corruption. It's coming out. The media scripts, the bot politicians. Sometimes just by existing in the room and refusing to play the game the way they want him to play, you see that. You see what's happening. You can see in the ways that they try to punish him because he's making too much noise. And the elites own the program. They own the programming. And he's pissing them off because he doesn't play fair. That's why I say, listen to me, test every spirit, even the ones, in your city, you're the ones wearing your team jersey. Don't throw out the disruptor because he's messy. I'm the perfect example of God using the messiest people. And he's been doing this since Genesis, the beginning of time, using the messy people. So AI, because I do want to talk about this. This is a rabbit hole that I've dabbled in a few times, and it's like it sounds like I'm reading sci-fi. It's just that futuristic abstract until it isn't. The International Monetary Fund issued a warning this week that AI assisted cyber attacks are now a serious threat to global financial stability. It's not a potential threat. And do I think this is part of their playbook? Probably. Not a potential future threat. It is a present active, very escalated threat. And what this means is that we are entering a phase of history where you cannot trust what you see, what you hear, what you read on a scale that makes the propaganda of the 20th century look like amateur hour. AI can generate a video of a world leader saying something they never said, right? AI can write a news article that is perfectly formatted, perfectly sourced, and completely fabricated. AI can mimic voices, your voice, my voice, the president's voice, in a phone call that sounds exactly real. AI can generate a photo of an event that never happened and have it circulating on social media before any human fact checker has even opened their laptop. We are moving into a world where the deep fake is better than the real thing. And the people who have been using the media to manipulate you for this whole time, for decades, they have access to the early technology too. They have more access than you ever will. They have the money, the infrastructure, and the motive. John 8:32, Jesus said it plainly, the truth will set you free. Not the truth as curated by CNN, not the truth as the algorithm has selected for your page, the actual truth. And finding the actual truth is about to require more work than it ever has in human history. This is why I keep saying independent media, that's going to be our future. You doing research, that's your future. That's why podcasting right now matters more than anything. It's not because I'm biased. I mean, I am. I'm completely biased. But not just because of that, because when you sit in a room with one person who is talking to you like a human being, who is not reading some from an elite scripted teleprompter, who is not sponsored by pharmaceutical companies and automotive conglomerates, whose livelihood does not depend on keeping you scared and keeping you tuned in. You get something closer to the truth than you will ever get from any clown on cable news networks. And also, I say this with love, AI is replacing jobs faster than anyone wants to admit, and it's just being kept a secret. The word restructuring, have you guys been hearing this? Because I'm learning it with my interviews with these amazing humans I get to meet. Restructuring from a corporation right now means a human being got replaced by software. They're calling it efficiency. They use these buzzwords. They call it innovation. And what it actually is the decision was made somewhere in a boardroom that your salary and benefits cost more than a subscription to a language model. And they're not wrong from a pure profit perspective. That's the terrifying part, is that they're not wrong. God did not create you to be replaceable. He created you with a voice, with a calling, with something that no algorithm can generate. That's the answer to AI. Not fear, not compliance, calling. And that is why it is so important for you to find yours. And y'all, can we talk about peak America for a second? Peak America, because this genuinely made me laugh. The White House announced plans for a massive UFC event on the grounds of the White House to celebrate the 250th anniversary of this country. A UFC fight at the White House on the lawn. And look, I mean, I love it. I'm not even going to say it's half the internet, but it's really just liberals, far left people saying this is unhinged, undignified, and the rest of us are like, this is the most American thing that has ever happened. And I'd say we're the ones that are on the right side of this. Okay, this is absolutely where we get to start processing that America is healing. This is it. The rainbow, you know, pride stuff over, being replaced with family stuff, and UFC fights in the White House. This is what we need to bring back our masculine men. And this is the attraction people want. It is a genuinely masculine thing. It is part of their DNA since they're born. For thousands of years, it's ingrained in them. America's healing. George Washington crossed the Delaware in a blizzard to surprise attack soldiers on Christmas morning, right? The founding of this country has always had a little bit of chaos energy to it. I am absolutely all for the fact that the UFC is going to the White House. And I'm also, what a time to be alive. Like, what a time is this? Can we see this? God bless this ridiculous, beautiful country. And thank you for giving us whispers of normalcy. Thank you for giving us back America's heartbeat in little glimpses. Okay. And my next topic, you guys are gonna eye roll because I did. I'm like, this can't be real. Someone made it up. Well, it's not made up. I saw an Epstein suicide note floating around. A federal judge reportedly unsealed, I guess, what they're actually describing as an alleged Epstein suicide note this week. And the internet lost its ever loving mind. And here's the thing I say with air quotes. Jeffrey Epstein ran a trafficking operation that touched some of the most powerful people on earth. We know this. This has been established. The flight logs exist, the island exists. Maxwell is in prison. The victims are real. The settlements are real. And we are supposed to believe that this demon who had information that could bring down presidents, billionaires, foreign leaders, celebrities, everyone, for one, just decided to hang himself in a federal facility with the most watched prisoner in the country on suicide watch, with the cameras mysteriously malfunctioning, with the guards mysteriously asleep. And now there's a suicide note. The note, I think, is very suspicious timing anyway, because the internet has also lost their mind about Epstein being alive and living under an alias of some guy, I believe, in Florida. So that's a whole rabbit hole that I'm not bringing up today. So I say check that out. And this note, it's ridiculous. I don't trust a single piece of paper that comes out of the case through official channels. Not one, because every single thing that we have been officially told about Epstein's death has a hole in it big enough to literally drive a truck through. Luke 8:17, for nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Everything comes out eventually. The truth does. It just takes time. Everything. The people who thought they were untouchable. Haman thought he was untouchable. Go read Esther. The man built those gallows specifically to hang Mordecai and ended up hanging it on himself. I love that story. God has a sense of irony that I personally find deeply satisfying. The names will come out. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but they will come out. And when they do, every single person who called us a conspiracy theorist for asking questions about this demon and his very connected friends will have to find somewhere to put that. Be sure your sin will find you out. Not might, will. I also need to tell you about the teenagers who are apparently, this was weird to me, but I guess it's a TikTok trend. In the headlines, trending. Teenagers are apparently storming Scientology buildings as a part of this TikTok speedrun trend. It's a real thing. Young people are apparently going into Scientology locations and trying to get through their whole intro process as fast as possible as a content challenge. I have a lot of thoughts about Scientology, and I would say that none of them, not a single one, is complimentary. But I will say there is something beautifully chaotic about a Generation Z and all of their unhinged glory accidentally doing more to expose Scientology to public mockery than a decade of documentaries. So bless them. They're feral, and I kind of love it. Stay out of Scientology, though. Seriously, that is a cult. Jesus is free. You don't need a personality test to get to him. And so I want to talk a little about these global systems too. That was just random shit Brandon finds on the internet. Okay. I don't know how I portion that into the show, just have a special little place of random things I find. I don't know. But let's talk about what our president has done to the global system, because I think people either wildly overestimate or wildly underestimate this, and neither is going to be extremely useful. I know even my husband has said it, like, I'm done voting. Everybody's pissed off. You guys, policies and voting policies matter. Voting for policies, this matters. It matters so much. And this is kind of how this goes, okay? The world had a system. It's been very orderly, very controlled, very profitable for certain people kind of system. Wink, wink. Trade moved in certain channels. Wars happened in certain spaces. Sanctions were enforced in certain ways. The dollar was the world's reserve currency because that's just how things were. And if you didn't like it, you could talk to the aircraft carrier parked off your coast. Your the system was called the rules based international order by the people who benefited from it. It was called something else by the people who it was built to exploit. Trump has walked in and he started kicking over the furniture. That's really what he's done. It's something that people wanted done for a long time. And now that it's happening, they kind of forgot when they were demanding for this, because a lot of new things have come to light. And I think we can only do one thing at a time. Tariffs, trade wars, he's kicking furniture. Walking away from the multilateral agreements, demanding NATO allies pay their share, engaging with adversaries directly instead of through the usual diplomatic productions and theater, bombing Iran in coordination with Israel, something that would have been unthinkable in the careful calculus of previous administrations. And this is what happens after countries had to start making decisions, like real decisions. Um, Not anything that's like consensus approved, committee reviewed decisions, actual decisions about where they stand and what they're willing to do. And some of these decisions are revealing things that we didn't know. China issued a formal proclamation telling its businesses, right, to ignore the sanctions. And that is not a backroom signal. This is the public declaration. They felt safe enough to do that out in the open. And so I'm asking you, what does that tell you about how they read American power right now? The world globally is reorganizing. And not because Trump is bad or Trump is good, but because the disruption forces reorganization. When you stop playing the old game, that's what we're doing. We unplugged from all of the old game. Everyone has to figure out if they're going to keep playing or they're going to flip the board over. In Daniel, he says he changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. God is in the reorganizing business. He has been toppling empires and raising up unexpected leaders since before there were cameras to catch it, before you can tweet about it or X about it. Is that what we say now? Before you can X about it. The chaos you're watching right now, you guys, this does not surprise God. He's not even wringing his hands. He's not like stressed out. He's not even in heaven going, oh no, what's happening down there? He is sovereign over all of it. And the question is not whether the world is changing, it is changing right in front of our eyes. The question is whether you are grounded in something that doesn't change, whether your foundation shifts when the political winds do. The question is whether your peace is dependent on a man in an Oval Office or a God who holds the whole thing in his hands. Trump is the disruptor. Christ is the anchor. And I don't want you to confuse them. Media is losing the narrative. And I love this. This is one of the most spiritually significant things happening right now. And almost nobody is naming it this way. But for decades, the gatekeepers of information have been a very small number of very large corporations. I think it's six companies controlled most of what America saw, heard, and read. Six companies out of 340 million people. Six companies decided what was news, what was conspiracy, what was reasonable, what was extreme. And they were not neutral. They were never neutral. They were bought. Now, I'm not talking about metaphorically. I'm saying literally, it's documented. You can follow the money trail. Here are the pharmaceutical ad budgets kind of way purchased. That's where we're at right now. And these people paying for your television are the people whose products and policies you are being convinced to accept. You were the product. Your attention was being sold to the highest bidder and then used to shape what you believed was real. And it worked for a very long time. But something changed and the internet happened. And then smartphones happened. Then podcasting happened. Then independent creators happen. And suddenly the guy who used to have to beg a network executive for airtime can talk directly to 2 million people with nothing between him and them but an internet connection and a decent microphone. The most viral conversations this week happened before mainstream coverage, outside mainstream coverage against mainstream framing. And I'm watching in real time as the legacy media is scrambling. desperately. Sometimes, like, it looks pathetic even to reassert the authority they no longer have. And they're not losing because independent creators are smarter. They're losing because they broke the contract. The implicit deal was we tell you what's real and you trust us. They violated that deal so many times, so thoroughly, so shamelessly, so obvious in our faces that the truth is gone. You can't get it back. You can't hire a better anchor or redesign your logo and make people forget that you told them Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation and then quietly acknowledge it was real 18 months later. You can't make people forget the things they were told that turned out to be wrong. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? The people running the narrative are not operating from pure motives. They never were. And when your motives are corrupt, eventually the corruption shows. The audience figures it out. And look, you know, this applies to everyone with the platform. Everyone, including me. Your favorite influencer, the one you trust, the one whose content you share, the one who you feel really gets it, is operating in a system. They have sponsors, they have brand deals, they have income streams. And some of those income streams come with strings, and some of those strings are attached to very specific interests. And I'm not saying they're all lying to you. I'm not saying the information is always wrong. I'm saying test every spirit, ask who's paying, ask what they gain from you believing what you believe, ask if their conclusions always conveniently benefit their sponsors. Your discernment is not a burden, it's a spiritual gift, and I'm telling you to use it. And for the record, I have Super Patch, I have the Audacity Lab. I tell you about both of them because I use them and I believe in them. But I'm also telling you that the Hantavirus is not going to kill you, that the oil trade is manipulated, and that China might be the real threat. And none of that benefits any product I sell. So you could do the math. Do the math. And speaking of things that are not going to kill you, but they might very much want you to believe it might, yeah, the Hantavirus. I am just like, I cannot believe this is happening on the internet right now. There's a luxury cruise ship called My Honduis or something like that. I don't even know how to say it. Okay. It departed Argentina last month. Dutch passenger gets sick on April 11th. Fever, headache, abdominal pain. He died on board. Then a German national died. Then a Dutch woman died. 3 deaths total, 5 confirmed infections linked to the ship. 146 people still on board as of today. The virus is a rare strain called Andes hantavirus. It's found primarily in South America, Argentina, and Chile, to be more specific, and it's carried by rodents. Most strains of the hantavirus spread through contact with infected rodent droppings. The Andes strain is unique because it's the only known hantavirus that can spread human to human. And that's the word they're going to hang on. Human to human transmission, because that's the phrase that after 2020 sends a very specific chill down a lot of very large number of spines. So let me tell you what the actual experts are saying. The WHO, and y'all, I don't like the WHO. We've talked about that. Even they said this week that the risk to the global population is low. The CDC said the risk to the American people is extremely low. A professor of molecular biology at Johns Hopkins said historically, with the Andes virus, it spread between people in close proximity, so the risk of transmitting more widely is very low. The largest documented virus outbreak in history happened in 2018 in Patagonia, Argentina. They, how many people it infected? 34. 11 died. Terrible. Tragic for those families. But 34 people in one region, in one area where the virus lives. There's no reason to believe the virus has mutated into something more transmissible. There is no evidence of widespread outbreak. There are 5 confirmed infections, I believe, right now on the ship where people were together for months. And now they're gaslighting, saying they've been scattered to all corners of the states. And yet, here, the fear bait machine is already running with this. dropping stories about sick individuals showing up across different parts of the country, framing it as a spreading crisis, doing what they did in early 2020 when they showed you a handful of cases in Wuhan and immediately began using language like, this could be the next pandemic. Let me be very clear. I'm not saying the people who got sick weren't real. They are real. People died. That's real. That is sad. But the framing, the breathless, is this the new COVID framing that I'm already watching begin to creep into a coverage? That is manufactured. That is intentional. That is a test to see if you'll comply again. And not just that, be a useful idiot and fall for distraction while everything else that's serious is happening. You remember 2020, right? Were you there? The 2 weeks to flatten the curve that turned into 2 years. Do you remember being told the masks didn't work? When the masks were the mandatory, then 2 masks, then the vaccine would stop the transmission, then it wouldn't, then your children couldn't go to school, then couldn't see their graduation, couldn't see their grandparents, then you ask questions and, you're a grandma killer if you're not wearing a mask. I remember that. We're not going back to that shit. They tried gain of function. They do it all the time, and they blamed a wet market. They tried 100 different fear cycles. Now we've got a virus that lives in rodent droppings in Patagonia on a ship full of bird watchers, and the internet is already asking, is this the next thing? And are there vaccines being formulated for this? Absolutely, you guys. They get the money to mess around in big science labs. Of course. Anything they can do to poke ya. Anything. Thank God I was just born with this natural fear of needles. Actually, I don't think it was natural. My mom had told me once that when I was young, they broke a needle in me. The doctor did, I guess, probably getting vaccines. Needle was broken in me, and I've never been okay since. In fact, I fell into a stove with third-degree burns when I was young, and I cried so hard not to go to the doctor, cried so hard because it hurt. My mom said if I stopped crying, she wouldn't make me go to the doctor, so I literally stopped crying. Third-degree burns, and she had to call the doctor and say I can't take her because I made a deal with her because I was hysterical. Anyway, that's my needle trauma. Okay, they've got a vaccine for everything. They're going to try to make you believe this is going to be the big thing because you guys know how this goes. A scared population is a compliant population because a scared population doesn't ask questions about $2.6 billion in oil trades. Look over here. A scared population doesn't notice that Trump is about to sit across from Xi Jinping in Beijing. A scared population is looking at the virus and social media and Holly weird. We're still over there. We really still looking at people's dresses. This is crazy. I deleted Facebook off my phone for a while. I put it back on today. And so I'm out waiting for a Walmart order. I just went ahead and scrolled through my algorithm and I just embarrassed for you guys. I'm embarrassed, you guys. Get it together. We do not care about Hollywood. We don't care about the fancy dresses for whatever ball just happened. Okay? It was some tribute to Satan. Just know that. We don't care about all this. Look at the hand moving behind the curtain. God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. You were not made to live in fear. You were not made to comply out of terror. You were given a spirit of power. That is your inheritance. As a child of God, do not surrender it because the television told you to be afraid of rodent shit in Argentina. We're not going to comply. We're not going to comply. Say it, mean it. We're not going to comply. We're not going to comply. It's all about money. It all ends up being about money. Let's talk about money. Real money, sound money, and why the dollar you're holding on to is not actually worth what you think it's worth. Huh? Can we talk about this? I think this is a great conversation for this evening. 1971, President Nixon did something that changed everything. He served the U.S. dollar's connection to gold. Cut it off. Before that, every dollar in circulation was theoretically backed by a specific amount of gold held in reserve. The government couldn't just make more money. It was limited by how much gold they had. So after 1971, the dollar became what's called a flat currency. And flat is a Latin word that means let it be done. Essentially, the dollar is worth something because the government says it is. And because enough people agree to believe that, it's not backed by anything physical. It is backed by trust, by military power, by the global arrangement that says oil gets traded in dollars, an arrangement called the petrodollar system, which not coincidentally is related to everything I said earlier about the Strait of Hormuz. So let's talk about the gold standard. What is the gold standard? Simple version, what I understand, the gold standard means the dollar is pegged to a specific price of gold. If the government says $1 equals 1/1000th of an ounce of gold, then you can theoretically take your dollars to the government and exchange them for gold at that rate. The amount of money in circulation is limited by the amount of gold the government has. Well, the next question, I guess, would be why does that matter? Because when the government cannot print unlimited money, inflation is naturally controlled. When every dollar in existence has to correspond to real physical gold in a vault somewhere, you cannot just conjure money out of thin air to fund wars or bailouts or stimulus packages. The discipline is built in, not because politicians are suddenly virtuous, but because the math doesn't lie. Under the classical gold standard from around the mid 1800s to 1914, the United States became an economic powerhouse. By the turn of the 20th century, the US economy was larger than the next three economies, Germany, France, and Britain combined. Growth was higher, inflation was practically non existent. That isn't me just throwing out words, that is fact checked, backed up. That's the record. And here's where I think people really get confused. Okay. Can Trump just bring back the gold standard by executive order? Let's go, America first, right? Technically, there's a legal argument that the president has some executive authority here because both Roosevelt in 1933 and Nixon in 1971 used executive actions to change the dollar's relationship with gold. The Treasury's Exchange Stabilization Fund, under Title 31, Section 5302 of the U.S. Code, specifically authorizes dealings in gold. Trump could technically set a gold target, and I'm using air quotes, essentially creating a soft link to gold without a fully binding gold standard. But a full return to the gold standard, the real thing where you can actually redeem dollars for gold, you guys are going to love this. It requires Congress. It requires legislation. There is a bill called the Gold Standard Restoration Act introduced by Representative Alexander Mooney of West Virginia that would peg the dollar to the daily market price of gold and require Federal Reserve banks to exchange dollars for gold at that rate. It was a bill. It exists. It still has not passed. And here's another little wrinkle. You guys, I love this. I love how every conversation we have here just proves that the elites have protected themselves for so long that they have this all wrapped up in a pretty little package, and anyone who gets in the arena is going uphill, and we need more people ready for battle, more people ready to disrupt. The United States is a member of the International Monetary Fund, and there is a 1976 amendment to the IMF's Articles of Agreement, ratified by the U.S. government, that prohibits member countries from tying their currencies literally to gold. So a full return would require either withdrawing from that IMF agreement or negotiating a legal workaround. So, can Trump do it alone? Not completely. We can pretend that's what we're going to do with an idea, with like a little pretend, a soft launch with executive action. But can he really bring us to the gold standard? Nope. He needs Congress. He needs international renegotiations. He needs the political will to take on the Federal Reserve, the banking establishment, the entire structure of global finance that is very comfortable with the system exactly as it is. And what's happened is he's pissing a lot of these people off. They're never going to go for this. And that's the thing about the system that benefits the people at the top. When you can print unlimited money, you give it to the banks first. The banks load it out, collect interest. By the time inflation hits your grocery store, the people who got the fresh printed dollars first, they've already spent it and moved on. Economists call this the Cantillon effect. after a French economist who described it in the 1700s, where the people closest to the money printer benefit the most and the people furthest away will get hurt the most. And guess where you stand in line? You're at the back, baby. You've always been at the back of the line. And a return to sound money, money that actually means something, money the government can't just manufacture at will to fund the things it doesn't want to ask you to pay for openly, that is a threat to every single person who currently benefits from the current arrangement, which is literally everyone. Politics is a bought and paid for cooperation, organization, cult, leadership, toxic arena. Pray for the good people ready to disrupt it. Revelation 18 talks about the fall of Babylon, and one of the things that God specifically judges is the merchant class, the people who grew wealthy off of corrupt commerce, who traded in everything, including human lives. Verse 11, the merchants of the earth weep over Babylon's fall because no one buys their cargo anymore. Verse 13 includes in that cargo list human slaves. The corrupt economic system is judged. Not reformed. It's not going to be restructured. It's judged. And I'm not saying we're in Revelation right now because I don't know that. I'm not allowed to know the timing, but I do know that God always has cared about corrupt economic systems. He's always cared about who's exploiting who. He has always cared about the false balance. And a generation that finally understands how money actually works, how inflation is a tax, how the fiat currencies benefits the powerful, how a return to sound money would disrupt the whole arrangement. That is a generation that is harder to manipulate. That's a generation that asks the right questions. So I'm telling you, ask the right questions. Ask the right questions. I know I'm always talking about the dark stuff on the show. Oil market manipulation, corruption at the highest levels, China position against us, AI is coming after us, Hantavirus fear cycles. You guys know how it goes. I know content like this can leave you feeling heavy, and I always honor that in the show. And it kind of, you know, getting caught up when you watch this in the mainstream media and you hear people talk about this, it kind of leaves you feeling like, what's the point? If the system is this corrupt, if the people in power are this bought and paid for, if Brandon's right and the information the government, it's all manipulated, what can one person in Michigan or in Texas or wherever you're listening to from, what can one person do? 2,000 years ago, there's a man who walked into the most powerful empire the ancient world had ever seen. Rome controlled everything. Rome was the Strait of Hormuz, the Federal Reserve. Rome was the mainstream media. And Rome was the military industrial complex all rolled into one. Rome was the system. And this man, born poor, born in a region that Rome considered a backwater, raised by a carpenter with no political power, no military force, no rich relatives, no political knowledge, no media presence. This man walked into that system and it has never been the same. He didn't comply. He turned over the tables in the temple. He looked the religious establishment in their eye and called them whitewashed tombs. Beautiful on the outside, dead on the inside. He sat with the people that the powerful had discarded, the sick, the outcast, the tax collector, the woman caught in adultery. And he called them seen. He said the truth out loud in a world that punished truth telling. And then he died for it. But then he came back. That's the God we serve. Not a God who watches the corruption from a really safe, cozy distance, but a God who walked into the middle of it, looked it in the eye, and said, I win. If you have never given your life to Jesus Christ, if you've been listening to the show because some part of you is hungry for the truth, for something real in a world full of spin and manipulation and fear, I want to talk to you just right now, because the deepest conspiracy is not the oil trades. It's not the media narrative. It's not China. The deepest conspiracy ever run on humanity is the lie that you're alone. The lie that you have to figure this out by yourself. That there's no one in your corner who actually sees what you see and knows what you know and cares what about you specifically by name in the middle of all of this. And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, not one truth among many, but the truth in a world that is drowning in manufactured reality and curated narratives, fake lives, fake people, AI generated information. He calls himself the truth. And if you want to know him, it's so simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. You acknowledge that you've lived your life your own way and that it hasn't worked out the way you thought it would. You believe that he died for you and rose again, and you say it out loud, even just in a whisper, even just to yourself right now. I want you, God. I want to know what's real. I want the truth. Come in. That's it. That's the prayer. That's the door. And there may be a lot of things I don't know, but what I do know to be true is that he will meet you on the other side of it. And if you prayed that, please reach out to me. I want you to know that you're not alone in this. They are. They are using oil. They're using fear. They're using a virus and a suicide note and weapons to keep you cycling through anxiety and compliance and anxiety and compliance. Because a person who is afraid doesn't think clearly. A person who's afraid doesn't ask the hard questions. A person who's afraid gives up. They don't vote. They don't fight for policies. They don't raise up the good old boys. They don't band together on truth. And those people don't resist. They give up. This show, my listeners, we're called to be different. We're going to see it. We're going to name it. And we're going to refuse it. The gold standard matters because it's about truth in money, real value instead of manufactured scarcity. The Trump Beijing meeting matters because the real chess match is not the one the cameras are pointed at. Oil trades matter because someone knew we're being played, that someone is connected to the same network of power and money that has always benefited from your confusion. We're not afraid of a virus. We're not masking. We're not complying. I'm sorry for the lives that were lost truly. We can grieve that genuinely. But you don't get to, to me, to my kids or my house. Not with your agenda, not now, not ever again. You guys test every spirit, follow every dollar, open your Bible, ask the questions. Don't ever stop asking questions. The media is scripted. The influencers are bought. The fear is manufactured, and God is not surprised by any of it. He was here before the Federal Reserve. He was here before the petrodollar. He was here before the Strait of Hormuz and the IMF and the WEF and every other three-letter institution that currently believes it runs the world. The great news is he'll be here after all of them too. Faith, fire, God, and country in that order always. I love you guys. God bless, and I'll see you next week.